The rail lines, the class 1 railroads, they're running every day 24/7. People don't think about is they get on Amazon.com and they press order, and sometimes now Amazon has this service where it'll be here by 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow if you put it in at the right time. All that originates with overseas shipping and then railroad transportation once it lands here.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Build, the podcast where innovation meets collaboration in the world of construction. We bring together thought leaders and industry experts to explore the cutting-edge ideas transforming construction equipment, supply chains, building materials, and workforce productivity.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Faro, the revolutionary last-mile logistics platform, redefining how high-value, time-sensitive construction deliveries get done. Need it fast? Need it right? Faro it.
Today, we're joined by Brian Connell, a dynamic leader with extensive experience in business development and logistics, spanning industries from railroad to oil and even federal law enforcement. Currently serving as the Director of Business Development at New Mexico Transloading, Brian has a proven track record of optimizing operations and fostering growth through strategic leadership. He has played a pivotal role in bridging logistics and customer service, helping companies meet complex challenges in railway, transit, and construction logistics. With years of hands-on experience and a keen understanding of how to navigate both the operational and strategic sides of the industry, he's built a reputation for creating solutions that drive efficiency, safety, and compliance. Today, we'll dive into how railway transit is transforming the construction logistics landscape and discuss the challenges and opportunities that come with integrating this mode of transport into modern supply chains. Brian, welcome to Beyond the Build.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to begin just because, I read a little bit of the bio on the freight transport that you're doing through the rail system. How long you been doing that?
So New Mexico Transloading is in its 10th year of operation. So I've been in New Mexico 9 years. And so we started out, really opened up in the first oil boom in 15, and then it all went away. So we opened up as mainly like a fracking sand facility, transloading frac sand for the San Juan Basin. All that went away, and then we had to restructure as a company to become the catalyst for economic development and business development. And so what we do is we actually have our system. The way it works is we bring in our investment is in rail infrastructure, and we're essentially a public facility that's able to pass the cost benefits on to our customers. So we have in 10 years, we've amassed about 400 customers that some use us daily, some use us once a year, some every other year. But we're the nexus for materials to come into New Mexico.
Very cool. So one of the things where my brain went was, rail building at I guess not the complete, but the United States, right? The way the rail system worked. And as we've developed in society and stuff like that, you don't really hear about rail transport as much. I watched something, I think it was on, I don't know if it was Discovery or something. You ever watch that series of the Men That Built America?
Oh, I love that series.
Haven't seen that one.
It's about J.P. Morgan, Vanderbilt, Carnegie, and Rockefeller.
All of the schools and libraries.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember which one was the rail was. Is it Vanderbilt? Which one did the rail?
Wasn't it Carnegie Steel?
Well, Carnegie Steel, but one of them was the rail tycoon. I have to figure it out. I can't remember. It's been so long since I watched it. This is like a
Rockefeller controlled the railroads.
Rockefeller. Okay. So back then it was like everything transported by rail, right? People, materials. And now all of a sudden it's all planes. Do a lot of our transport. We talk about trucking on the highway. We're getting into electric vehicles. And I can't remember the last time outside of a passenger train, like an Amtrak or something, I even considered I'm like, oh, that's right. Freight still goes on rail. Like, we're so stuck in this, like, okay, how do I get it from this interstate highway and these transportation lanes? Like, do you feel, I mean, you're in the industry, Brian, but for me, I was just like, when we started going rail, I'm like, oh, that's right. There's tons of stuff that actually goes out on rail. And I kind of almost like had an airball where I was like, whoa. I mean, do you think the industry is still huge like that, where a lot of transport still going through rail, or is it the media or something that just always talks about the commercial truckers? Or, I mean,
Yeah. So you bring up a really good point, because I've had a lot of conversations, and people don't even understand what I do. And I could talk to them, and I could be friends with them for 4 or 5 years. They say he does something with rail. so so
He's a
the,
train guy.
yeah, he's
likes
the
trains.
train guy. So people don't understand it. But it is so vital. The rail lines, the Class 1 railroads, they're running every day 24/7. And so what people don't think about is they get on Amazon.com and they press order, and sometimes now Amazon has this service where it'll be here by 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow if you put it in at the right time. All that originates with, overseas shipping and then railroad transportation. Once it lands here, if it's a domestically made product, it's all rail. So we are bringing it. We're making it sexy, I guess, again, because it hasn't been for so long.
yeah, I think with shipping, so I did about 15 years down in the port of Long Beach, right? And I mean, you get down there in the intermodal terminals, and if you're in a vehicle and you get in the wrong lane, I mean, good luck getting out without getting ran over, right? There's just trucks everywhere. But a lot of times, if you don't go to the right portion of the port, you kind of don't even really see where the trains are and how everything is pulling out from there. And then what would you think is like the percentages from a port of entry? How much is going out on rail in terms of containers, and how much is going out on truck?
I don't
Do you
know
have
the
any
exact
figures?
number, but it's massive. It's definitely in the 90 percentile, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm recruiting Chat J. Scott, I almost called it Chat JPT because I'm getting so used to
That's
you
what we call
saying that.
JP. He's so like, he's got all the answers. We just deemed it Chat JPT in the company.
But I'm recruiting Chat GPT to just get some stats on rail, because I don't know a ton about rail, and seeing some really impressive figures that I wanted to shout out. So rail moves 40% of long distance freight by ton miles, which is more than any other mode of transport. It is 4 to 5 times more fuel efficient than over the road trucking. And let's see. Oh, and just in 2022, there was 23 billion in I guess a budget or spend for infrastructure and technology. So I mean, yeah, Scott, we've forgotten about this, but this is like literally, like, it sounds like it's the arteries to the American body.
And Brian, how do we educate people? I mean, do you think they just don't care anymore because they just, to your point, I want my Amazon and I want it 4 a.m. and I want to press the button and I want to go off with my life?
That's been my biggest struggle. Is So the way we work is rail's very expensive. It's expensive to build. It's expensive to have the facility that we have. But it's kind of like a shared investment, right? And so what we do is we approach each customer and we say, okay, let's take a look at your books. Let's see how quickly you can get, because it's not the fastest means of transportation, right? What could be here in 48 hours in a truck will take 7 days for the rail to arrive, just because of the networking. It makes stops. One car gets broken off, gets put on another train. So it's a longer process, but you're moving equivalent. Each rail car is moving 4 truckloads of material in one rail car. That's why rail cars don't stop on a dime, because just the multiplier of that, if they have 100 cars on them, that's 400 truckloads trying to stop. It's not going to happen. But what people don't realize is that when you talk green energy, the locomotive is a diesel electric powered vehicle. And so it is the original green electric vehicle. And so it's been depending on, you look at like the Tesla motors and stuff and how much horsepower those things are producing, right? Well, locomotives figured that out a long time ago. And so that's where we get the efficiencies in the rail ton mile that JP was referencing off of chat. And so it's an incredibly efficient machine, and we use it. But a lot of folks, they don't understand that. They think that they need a rail yard. They think that they need rail to their facility. That's not 100% not true. That's where transloaders come in, and we say we handle the infrastructure for you. We make sure that our tracks are lined and gauged, and we're not going to cause any accidents when the locomotives are pulling in. And so we operate very efficiently. We just celebrated as a company 2 years, no lost time, no accidents. And so we're really great on that. Everything that moves hazardous materials, we handle that daily. It has to be met at 100% for us to maintain our safety policies. But what the hardest thing to do is to take a guy that can have a 48-hour, I'm going to click the easy button and a truck will be here in 2 days, and educate him how to order in advance, stack his material. And I've got plenty of land here, so they can stack material here. And then we'll do final mile trucking to their job site. And then they save about 30% if they do it that way.
Interesting. Yeah, because we're kind of in the way that we're structured. We're kind of that, what you say, I remember one time we went out to dinner with friends. They stopped here at our house originally. We were making a pot of coffee and it cracked and it broke. And we're like, oh, crap, we can't have coffee. What are we going to do? Go on Amazon, order a cup of coffee or order a new carafe. And we go to dinner. We come back and it's already sitting at our doorstep, which is just insane. And what I was going to make the comparison to is Sparrow is all about that, that kind of panic mode sometimes. It's like, oh, crap, I thought I had a logistic solution to get something from the yard to the construction site, and I don't. How do I do that in an hour or 2 hours? And that's where we come in and do that. Whereas what you're describing, requires that forethought, but saving, 30%, that is such a huge impact, I can imagine, on your customers' bottom lines. It's almost, you would think that why doesn't everyone utilize something like this?
And you'd be surprised to know, JP, that a lot of folks do. So I have contracts with every steel mill in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So a lot of times, what you don't see at the construction level on the panic button is being pushed by the construction industry. I already have, $7 million worth of steel stacked on my yard. And so that's ready to go at a moment's notice. And that's, we've got rebar here. We've got cement stacked up, ready to roll. So we can handle a lot. And to contribute to your panic mode.
Right. Yeah. You're a kind of ready to go warehouse. Now, this, again, another potentially naive question. Are you kind of like a virtual warehouse for some of your customers, or is it more that you feel like you hold inventory that anyone can pull from? Or is it like, nope, that stack, that's only for, construction company A or contractor A, or how does that work?
Yeah. So a lot of the suppliers, like a steel mill or a lumber mill, they'll whether we use Sierra Pacific, Weyerhaeuser in the lumber industry, or we're talking Triple S Steel. So they'll have strategically placed, batches of steel or lumber already ready to go. And so yeah, our business is we don't move anything without paperwork, because it's literally, this belongs to Home Depot, this belongs to Lowe's. So it's a hybrid of that situation that you're explaining.
Yeah, I could see a situation where, let's say a steel mill produces X amount of material, right? And they're like, well, we don't have a place to store it. We got to produce more. What they'll end up doing is saying, we're going to send you a BOL or a batch of, and it's going to go to your yard. And you're saying, okay, freight it in, right? Put it on the rail. We'll stack it. They know it's there. It's almost kind of like a consignment. And then what ends up happening is their end users say, hey, I need 200 tons of steel for this job in, I don't know, San Francisco. And you're like, all right, we know where it's at. It's in your yard. Now it's really about, how do we push it, get it on rail from wherever it is, maybe it's Texas, Louisiana, pull it into a depot somewhere near San Francisco, get it done, to get it staged, then start piecing it out on trucks where it actually can get to the physical job site. And it's really just connecting all the dots. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, 100%. And one of my biggest customers is Atcor. They make plastic. It's a PVC type of pipe for water transfer. They what they do is a lot of plastics and petroleum products are manufactured in Houston, Louisiana. So what they'll do is they'll stack up 15 rail cars of plastic resin, move it to our facility in Albuquerque, so that when the hurricanes come in and shut down those rail lines, they already have materials forward staged to go to California.
Got it.
Wow. Talk about planning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would have never thought, but it makes perfect sense that, yeah, if you know that something like that's coming, that you can strategically place resources in unaffected areas.
And so there's these like, well, what do you call them? Like intermodal depots or rail yards, kind of like, every state or every area has a strategic place where, the rail stops. And then what is it? Just like a convoy of trucks that come in and start picking up material? Is it kind of like a port where, there's an inflow, outflow? Don't put a car in there. Like, what does that look like in there?
Yeah, so I'll give you my situation. So from the Port of Long Beach to Belen, New Mexico, which is just south of Albuquerque, that's the stopping point, refuel and recrew point out of California. So every freight train that's running east or that's running east from California is going to stop in Belen. Then what happens is the rail cars are built out and they're transferred up to Albuquerque. BNSF has a facility downtown Albuquerque, and then the job train is built out, and then it comes into my yard. So BNSF's not in the transloading business. They do a little bit here and there. Norfolk Southern does a little bit here and there, but they're depending on our private transload facilities to handle. They don't want all these trucks pulling in and saying, "Where's my stuff?" We deal with that.
Who are the majors now in terms of the rail? Like you said, BNSF, like, who are the rest?
Sure. Union Pacific, Norfolk
Union.
Southern, CSX.
Okay. And each one of them kind of play in a different lane. Like Union, it's like, this is what we do. BNSF, or are they all kind of everything to everybody?
They all kind of fight for who's the biggest and the baddest one. So like BNSF will say we have the most track, but UP says we're bigger than BNSF. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, it's kind of like we haul more freight than you do, but you own more track. It's like yay for you.
And then CPKC is the other big one too.
Okay, gotcha.
Has there been a lot of consolidation? Something that I've noticed being somewhat new to like the equipment rental business is that just in a shorter period of time, I've seen a lot of consolidation where, it seems like kind of the big five or so rental companies are always buying up mom and pop shops, little places, or even larger to medium places. And then you even have big acquisitions like the H&E acquisition that just happened. Is the same thing happening in rail where there's been a lot of consolidation? There used to be a lot of players and now there's only a few?
To a degree. So Canadian Pacific and Kansas City Southern, they joined, and it had to go through Congress and everything. So there's no monopolization. But yeah, so now they are CPKC Railroad. So that was the most recent one, happened a couple of years ago. But it's a good thing for the class ones to not have a monopoly because then they stay competitive for the end user.
Scott, do you mind if I pivot us a little bit I want to know a little bit about Brian's backstory. Just kind of how does someone who started in being a Border Patrol agent and a little bit about what that experience was like, how does that bring you to where you are today? What stars aligned to get you here?
I always say it's a long story. So I guess right after high school, I started contracting with the Department of Defense during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts. So I was a DoD contractor for many years. Then I wanted to stay stateside, and so I joined the U.S. Border Patrol, and I was stationed in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. So, being a West Texas boy, New Mexico was always calling my name, and but I refused to be a New Mexican. So, but so 9 years ago, I had the opportunity. I landed in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had a home in Los Lunas, New Mexico, which is a beautiful little village just south of us, and just got into the rail industry because I was in oil and gas in Odessa, and it was a volatile market, and not one to raise a family on. And so, you could just no cause of your own, you could show up and the door's locked, and your oil company that you've been working for the past 2 years is out of business. So not really. I was looking for something a little bit more dependable. I got into the rail industry with a company called Gandy Dancer. We were the Southwest largest, uh, and probably customers of all the utility or utility rentals and machine rentals and stuff. And that company shut down in 2019, but before 19, in 15, we'd built, the transload facility. And so we actually, made the transloading into its own business, and it's a standalone business today. Um, Back in 19, or early 20, we were bought out by, a group of local investors, here in New Mexico that are in real estate development, construction, and so the idea is for us to come together and form this beautiful union so that we can handle everything. We handle the logistics aspect of it, we handle the construction aspect of it, and the real estate development.
Was transloading a new idea, or was it something that had been in existence beforehand?
Transloading is kind of getting sexy, like I was saying. So there's I want to say around 400 transloaders throughout the United States, and that number is growing, and because they're seeing such a benefit. The way I'm running my business in Albuquerque is we started a U.S. foreign trade zone, and so we're giving all the tools of how Fortune 100 companies work in a small town. I consider Albuquerque a small town, right? We're not the size of Dallas. So in a small town and controlling all the logistics, we have plenty of land, available for people to come. So now we're actually starting to attract some of the big manufacturing companies. The global guys are coming to New Mexico, and we're already built. So New Mexico Transloading would not have worked anywhere else because we literally put the cart before the horse, by building the infrastructure. Because in any other town, Phoenix, Kansas City, Dallas, Fort Worth, logistics infrastructure follows business. In Albuquerque, we built the logistics infrastructure first, and now we're bringing the business in.
It's whole field of dreams approach. Build it and they will
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
All right. But ain't anybody else. Like you go to big cities, like, where should we put a stadium? I don't know. What are we gonna eminent domain, and where are we gonna knock down? This seems like a good spot. Right. So that's smart that you guys did that, because like you're marketing to, like, we have the capacity, we have the system and the process. So to be able to court large Fortune 100s and say, yeah, come and look at our facility and what we can offer, compared to, oh, you have a problem, let's all work on a solution together, and then it's just hope it works.
Are there any big innovations that are on the radar or in production, as it were, right now that are kind of particularly exciting for you or the industry?
Well, it's funny that because I don't know how to answer this, because it's literally going back to primitive technology, right? I mean, the rail industry hasn't changed at all. So
It's not like, let's put a rocket engine on it
yeah.
and make it go fast.
Well, they
So
tried
I
to.
mean,
What, California is still trying to do a bullet train. I mean, let's see how that goes.
1 centimeter at a time.
so I mean, in the freight industry, nothing has changed. We're just expanding the network. It's a true railroader. Every time he sees a piece of rail get ripped out of a city because they don't use it anymore, will have a tear come down his face. But so I don't really know how to answer your question, JP, because it's like we're going back to primitive technology, but at the same time too, it's so much more efficient. And the cost savings is so much better.
Interesting. There are a few instances where, the adage of, build a better mousetrap, like we got it right nearly on the first try. I mean, yeah, I think that's one of the most patented ideas out there, but the one that everyone knows from every cartoon, that's the mousetrap we all know and love. And sometimes you just hit it out of the park on the kind of the first go. And rail seems to it's been around forever, and it seems like it to be just a great way to do things. And I can understand where, I mean, I guess from my perspective, like going to diesel electric was probably the last like really big innovation, I guess. But that and like digital logistics technology, like tracking stuff like that. But with that aside, what are the big like friction points or challenges then that you face now that you do still have to overcome in the rail side of things?
So one of my biggest challenges is educating customers. Like how does this work? And developing the trust relationship where they'll open the books and they'll say, this is what I'm spending on logistics right now. Make it better, So in order for us to have that relationship and make it better and save the money for the customers, that's really hard. It takes a lot of meetings and so on and so forth. And we have economic development now just starting to get behind us. So as a state, the state and the city are actually saying, hey, this crazy guy from Odessa, Texas that came in here 10 years ago talking about transloading, we didn't even know what that was. Now it's all coming together. Now I'm pulling that rabbit out of the hat and saying, you see what I'm talking about? We're building this city. And so that's always been a friction point, is gathering the education behind it. That's why I jump on your podcast, because more people need to know about this, and the construction industry needs to know about this as well. Where, they can truck everything in, but if they use a transload facility like New Mexico Transloading, and we're only handling the final mile transport, there's going to be a hospital that's built in the village of Los Lunas, New Mexico. I would say 80% of it is stacked right here in Albuquerque, and it's ready to go. And the contractors call us up. We're a dream to work with. We understand. We go out to the job sites, and we say, when do you need this? And when, what's it going to take? They just make a phone call, and we send a flatbed truck down to their location with their material. And so the friction is really education.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this because, again, I hadn't thought about rail since I've been in the port, but now my mind is spinning, right? Because I'm going to things like, okay, what are the biggest challenges? Time is always going to be a challenge, whether in business or actually even life, right? We only have a limited amount of it. And then space, right? When I own a company, I'm like, okay, what is my cost per square foot of my property, right? Is it being utilized effectively? Why do I need to go get a 10-acre yard to store stuff when I can actually put more resources in trying to sell the product, utilize someone like Brian and saying, okay, I know where my material is. I don't need to see it every day. I just need to get it from A to B. That's all I got to do. So I can go grab office space and do my business and not say, oh, I need another 9 acres just because I have to have it here. It's like, no, I don't need it here. As long as Brian's got it and he can get it to where I need to go, my problem is solved. So I'm thinking, from your guys, is you're probably educating, going and saying, let's not just think about how do we get it from the material yard to me. Let's look at it from like soup to nuts. How do we basically completely connect all the dots within the circle and saying, here's your supplier where it's manufactured. This is how we're going to cart it in. This is where it's going to be staged. And this is how we're going to get it from where it's staged to your job site or wherever you need it. And here's the timeframes of, proactive ordering that we need in order to make this commitment, and literally like re-educate them that this is not an Amazon experience. I understand that you're busy and things change, but we have to kind of control the way you do business as well. And say, if you need 200 tons of steel, let's come up with a formulated plan on how we're going to trickle that in, rather than saying, okay, we're all here. How many forklifts do you have to unload? And everybody's in panic mode. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. You're nailing it right on the head, Scott.
Yeah. And see, for us, I mean, that's one of the things that we want to leverage, where like we look at partnerships, Brian, like with you, and we kind of attack it from all angles, even with our supply chain customers, and saying, what are you doing with your material? Right? Educating them on your business and saying, okay, we can set up partnerships with Brian's area where we can go pick it up and we don't even have to interrupt your daily business. Like, you guys go book the order. We'll take care of getting it there. Right? We'll stay in our lane, you stay in yours, and kind of like the football team, block, catch, pass. Okay, we know what we're doing.
Yeah, and we're such an integral part to the construction process. And like I said, because where are you going to put 200 tons of steel, right? So New Mexico Transloading, we have about 94 acres of land under our hat, and it's all based on construction, forward staging. That's what the land use is for. We're getting more into warehousing because we can't have plywood sitting outside. But it's and people are play that market, man. Buy when plywood's low, and save money on your construction.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, yeah, because you're going to use it. It's like toothpaste at Costco. You go, you see it, it's $10 off this weekend. You grab it, you got toothpaste for a year. And because you're going to consume it at some point, and you've locked in a lower price.
That's the instant gratification challenge that everyone has to overcome. Especially in business, like, I want a return on my investment, right? It's like when it's sitting there, you're like, okay, it's not using, what can I do with that money? But if you're thinking long term, you're like, well, someone's going to use it. It's a matter of time, and how do I bankroll that out? Right? You will win in the long run, and that's the whole game. Right? You want to do the marathon or the sprint, right? You got to pick your poison.
And we're so well diversified. I mean, we're doing fuel by rail. We're doing all your fuel additives, your ethanol that's mixed into your fuel. That all lands here. It can't go by pipeline. And so another thing that we're so diversified in, like I mentioned, the plastics, the steel, the chemicals. So water purification. We have chemicals here that go straight to the water purification system. We have what's called urea, which is diesel exhaust fluid. We run diesel exhaust fluid, but we also have the dry form, which is used for power plants. So if I fail today, Arizona's power shuts off. So that's the type of impact that I have, and that's why I'm here every single day, making sure, and my crews are here 24/7, literally making sure that what everybody's used to, all the easy living, and that your electricity turns on and your AC turns on in Arizona, man, that's what we're here for. So,
and now your expansion, so growth wise, is it more land to hold product? Is it getting cities and municipalities to put more track in rather than more road? Like, where do you see growth coming from?
So my immediate growth is we purchased another 27 acres of land, and we're gonna build more track to transload material off of. So we currently have 175 car spots. We have 1.5 miles of track, which can hold probably around 150 rail cars. And we're going to be putting in anywhere between 98 to 160 more rail car spots. So we're trying to make Albuquerque into a hub.
And that's all connected, right? You, like, the rail company doesn't have to make another stop, right? They just say, hey, when we make the stop, we can just now leave more cars.
It's just on the line. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about it, there is quite a bit of space, in between, the big cities where it's just empty rail. So as long as you have roads to get there for the trucks that are going to be taking the stuff out, I don't want to say infinitely expandable, but it seems easier to expand in that situation versus like if you're already in an existing area where it's just too congested or the real estate is too expensive.
Yeah, and our real estate in New Mexico is inexpensive. So we're really in a great niche here in Albuquerque, and like I said, I do more business. I do more business with Farmington, New Mexico, which is very industrious. It's oil and gas. I do more business with them than I do with Santa Fe, New Mexico. We sent material down to Roswell because they were redoing their airfield, and so they needed all the traction control on the runways. That all lands here, and so I've got my hand in absolutely everything. New Mexico Gas wanted to connect Albuquerque to New Mexico and land 34 miles of gas pipe. They landed here. I always, if you've ever been to a Topgolf, Topgolf, a great facility because you can see all the I-beams, the concrete, the rebar it's all like pretty much exposed. They don't really cover that up in their final product. And so when when Topgolf Albuquerque was built, I tell people, go to Topgolf. Everything that you see there landed here. So
we're getting into like a whole different sector. I want people to think who are listening to this, right? We live in the consumer environment where we talked about early on the call. We want to hit a button. We want to get what we want. I mean, we live in a society now. We don't even know what's showing up to our doorsteps. Like that's how, I hate to use a term, but like gluttonless, where like we just order stuff and it just shows up and I'll look at my wife and I'm like, what is yours? She's like, I'm not sure. I don't remember what I ordered. Right. That's the mindset. Like the common person is looking at. It's like, I got boxes showing up. I have to open it to figure out what it is. But what Brian, you're talking about is the stuff that no one thinks about, right? Like your lights going on, right? Things that we need to live. We're kind of walking around in a fog and going, well, I don't know how it gets here. I just know that the switch works, right? It's that re-educating point and saying, okay, where do we have these strategic depots, right? If we look from California to Florida and we stay just on the southern end, I can't remember what the major arteries are, but is it like the 10 freeway or the highway 10 that goes, east to west? But it's like, there's a 10 and 40. There's tracks running that same way. Now, when I go from, let's say, California to Florida, how many of those stops are those rail systems going to like yours and saying, okay, we can do a stop in New Mexico. We can do a stop in Texas. There's one more stop we can do in Louisiana and then we're for. So like you got 4 choices, pick one. Is that how it works?
yeah, but so those are the arteries, right? But then there's all these offshoots, all these branches that like for us. So the artery is going through Belen, New Mexico from the port of LA. So, but our little offshoot goes just a little bit north into Albuquerque. And so they break trains in Belen and then ship them up to us, and then we eventually get them in our yard.
Okay, so there's little branches of the trunk of the tree that says, hey, we can shoot up here, make a left turn or a right turn, depending on which way you're coming from, and saying, okay, drop here, and then get back on the trunk and keep going. And JP, that's where I think that interconnection goes with supply chain. If they can start utilizing, or to your point, Brian, be educated, like this is an opportunity, then we start working on the infrastructure of saying, okay, how do we build a facility to get the trucks in there to be efficient, and saying, how quickly do we load? We do things like 5S and Kaizen. It says we have a process and here's where the forklifts go, and get them in and out in those turn times really quick. Because one of the things when we started Faro, it was always just going, there's tons of avenues where you can get from a yard or a distribution warehouse and things can come in and be set and staged. But always the issue is like, it's not getting something from New York to Phoenix is the issue. It's like my product has been in Phoenix for 7 days and it's not where it needs to be. Like, what are we doing here? That last mile position was like, I don't understand why it's taking so long. But I think also having this stage, it's like, well, it doesn't need to take so long because we're already ready and we're prepared.
Yeah, and so a lot of folks, they do get frustrated because it takes a few days longer. And it's not the easy button is trucking, and I love trucking. I'm not taking away from the trucking industry at all. America runs on trucks, but what people don't realize is it originates on rail. So
America runs on trucks. America was built on rail.
right.
So just remember those two, right?
And what's awesome is my network of flat. I don't own any trucks, but my network of trucking companies is they love me. They pull in, we load fast, efficient, safe, on time, and they're in and out of our facility quick. But then they can either turn that same truck around, come back and get another one in the same day, or they can go home at night. And so the trucker has a family life. He's not over the road.
Yeah, I think the play, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is really reach out to these manufacturers and these mills and saying like, guys, you make the raw product, I'll store it and get it out to where it needs to go. You just gotta bring your stuff to me, and here's the vehicle, here's the rail to get it. So stop bringing trucks into your facilities and buying more land, and instead tell me when it's done, put it on the cart, and we'll take care of it from there.
Yeah, and to actually my education to the manufacturer, because I have a U.S. foreign trade zone on this facility, is, whatever is re-exported, the way the Department of Commerce has set this up is re-exports don't get taxed or dutied. And so you get your raw material from China, Russia, wherever, it turns into a final good. If that final good, if you're shipping that to Mexico City, you never pay the duty on it because it was done in a foreign trade zone status. And so that's where we're attracting big time manufacturers to our city, buying through New Mexico Transloading and our FTZ and our benefits that we have. So not only are you saving 30%, you're not having to pay the taxes and the duties on foreign material, and then your re-exports, you don't pay the tax on that or the duty on that. And so this really applies to big manufacturing companies.
So I'm a little slow. Walk me through that process again. So if you have raw material coming in off a ship, right, from overseas, that raw material goes to a US based manufacturing facility to get produced?
Yeah, so the foreign trade zone policies that exist are to promote American jobs. And a lot of folks that don't realize what the intricacies are of that. But let's take a bicycle, right? So a bicycle might have 25 parts manufactured, different parts and components are manufactured all over the world. When they land in a foreign trade zone, and then you manufacture that into a bicycle, now the end result is a bicycle. It's no longer all this raw stuff, which is dutied or taxed. And so then what we do as a U.S. foreign trade zone is we go back to Uncle Sam and we say, hey, we owe you about $2 million in duties and taxes. And Uncle Sam literally says, did you create American jobs? Yes, we did, because this factory has employed 140 people to put all these widgets together into a final bicycle. Then it's forgotten. So the duty is eliminated. And so duty elimination is a big key factor for manufacturing.
Got it. Because recently with the whole car manufacturing, I think Trump was saying something like, hey, if you buy an American-made car with American-made parts and you don't get the brake lines from Canada and the discs from Mexico and put them on there, like GMC, Ford, these American car manufacturers are saying, hold on, we got to make sure not only is the vehicle being assembled here in an American plant, but we need to make sure that the parts go on that also came from American plant, and we're not shipping it in from Mexico or somewhere else to finish the vehicle. Does that fall into that same category, or is that still like the duty free? Because there's still, in some cases, they're like, hey, we don't have any plants within the United States that manufacture that. We do have to get a part or maybe 7 or 8 parts on this vehicle from somewhere overseas.
Yeah, that's a great point, Scott. And I'm about as conservative as they come in my political views and ideology. But I will say that the policies that are being enacted are a little premature, because what happened in the tariff wars back with Coolidge, what happened then was, we were an industrious country, so right now we do depend on the world. So what I would love the current administration to say is, if you have this machine that's manufactured in China, I don't care if it's manufactured in China, if you bring it in and put it in an American plant, that should be done duty-free. That should be done without imports and tariffs, because it's creating American jobs. I think the current administration is really missing the ball on this one particular They just need to put a little bit more language into it, because, hey, we don't mine the raw materials that Russia does or that China does, but we sure turn it into something else.
Yeah, raw material is one thing, but if it doesn't like produce something, you're like, so it's a bunch of dirt. Like, what do you want me to do with this? Right? That's interesting. And how it connects to like you said, the rail facilities, how we get it there, the transportation. I mean, this is a spider web. And I think sometimes we all just live in these little echo chambers where it's like, well, I know my lane and how it operates, and we just walk past the stuff that actually could be helping us.
And if we're really pro-American jobs, then that needs to be changed pretty quickly. We should not. There's actually a solar company called Maxion. They're coming into Albuquerque. It's a foreign-owned solar panel manufacturer. A lot of the machinery is actually in Mexico right now, waiting on the tariffs to settle down. And it's like that plant is going to employ 1,400 Albuquerque residents. Let's get that machinery in. Let's eliminate the tariffs and the duties on that machinery, because it's going to build an American plant.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a solar project. I can't remember which one we were on, if it was in Texas, could have been New Mexico, one of the two. And it was the electrical contractor we were talking, right? And I think this one was like a 500 megawatt project, 550 or something like that. So we had tons of panels everywhere. So the first thing was like, how do we get the panels in? And they had the opportunity to do rail car. But again, they still had to get it. They get as close as possible and then ship it in. But they had a lot of space where they could store the panels, and hopefully they didn't get damaged, wind. One of the biggest challenges he had was he's like, I don't know how to dispose of all the pallets. He had so many pallets that he was shipping on rail car after rail car. We're like, do you burn them? Do you grind them up? Like, what do you do? And you started thinking about like how many trucks that came in and trying to just take empty pallets from product coming in. I think they were even considering like, can we build a track to come in and just literally put it on cars and freight it out? Like, those are type of solutions. Like, I don't know if they're temporary and what the permitting looks like to do it. But when you're looking at these mega projects, or like, what's the coal plant up here in Arizona? It's out towards Page, Arizona. They have their own rail system, like on the plant, right? Because it's coal fire plant, and they're shipping in. But all that stuff, like you said, are those little offshoots where you can like utilize that stuff, pull it in, pull it out. And again, we don't even know that it's going on. We forget that, again, America is built on rail, and we all inconvenience when we have to go through a traffic light and have an arm come down in front of us. We're like, now I'm going to sit here for 7 minutes. My day is over.
I educate my friends and family and respect that train. It is so vital. If you want your Amazon box sitting on your coffee example that you used earlier, if you want it there before you get home, thank that railroad. So,
and now I think, again, my wife's grandfather, pretty much her lineage was all rail workers, right? And they were out in Winslow, Arizona, and they rode the rail. Like, that's what they did. Dad went on and he saw them in 2 weeks and came back. Is that still kind of like that, where you have a conductor, a brakeman, operator, and then they're pretty much running the whole track? So like, technology wise, you don't need as many bodies, but the train's kind of operating autopilot with a few engineers and a few people on it.
Yeah, it's still very, very labor intensive. So I don't want to knock too hard on BNSF, because BNSF is the hand that feeds me. But they say BNSF stands for Better Not Start a Family. You're working with them, yeah, you're going to be out in some of the most remote, austere environments of the United States, and
you're going to see some beautiful country, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
JP, remember we had a hauler in our network,
Brian Smith.
He was part of the rail system out here, where he was like on call, and he was like down on the food chain. Maybe his seniority had him like call number 6. And in his off time, he would haul for Faro because he wouldn't be on the clock. And then when they would call someone in, hey, you got to go down to the yard, you got to do all the train stuff. So it's not even who's operating, but also in those depots to make sure. And I think he just did the short runs, because I think you got the long haul to your point, like you're going to be gone for 2 weeks and kiss the your wife goodbye. And then there's also that kind of, hey, we're on for like 12 hours, 14 hours. We got to go from Phoenix up into wherever. And then we're hot, I wouldn't call it hot shot, but then get back. So there's a lot of moving parts there. And I think to your point, we just need to educate the layman folk like myself to just like, remember, there's an infrastructure that you don't see and tend to care about. And that if it was taken away, you'd be the first one standing with a sign complaining, going, why is my stuff not working?
I remember back in COVID. So we're essential workers, right? And so we could pass a police checkpoint if we had to, say we got to get to work, right? And everybody that went to work from home, I was kind of jealous. I was like, what's that like, And then they said, well, what do you mean you still have to go to work? And I was like, well, I'm a railroader. If I don't go to work, then there's a problem. This is nothing, COVID and everything. But if I don't go to work, the whole country's shutting down. So yeah, and there's just hundreds of thousands of Americans that do the same thing that I do day in and day out.
Yeah, how are you gonna eat your mask if I don't go to work? Like that's always the thing. It's like you can't do that. You're gonna have to wash your bed sheet, and that's gonna take a Tide Pod, and that's got to get here. So it's all interconnected.
I guess one final question, then I'd say let's land the plane. Is how do you stay motivated and energized in your industry? I mean, it seems like so much is, I don't know. Don't want to say it's like a thankless job or anything like that, but it does seem like. But yeah. What keeps you going, in your industry?
Well, so first thing personally, I never feel like I don't know what it's like to feel dragged at work. Like the day's just dragging on. There's always something to do. And so my job and my phone, is I've probably missed about 15 different phone calls since we've been talking of things that need to happen. But so there's never a dull moment for me personally, and that's just the drive of the individual that I am. I couldn't sit at a desk really, and I'm everywhere, and that was the one thing that's been my whole career. I've never been stationary, and so that's for me personally. But what's rewarding about it is not necessarily that I'm looking for people to pat me on the back and say, "Hey, great job. Without you, or without the rail industry, we wouldn't have these products." No, what really what I can dial down to is I took my neighbor, who his name's Edgar Lucero. He's now the foreman of New Mexico Transloading. I took him out of he was a great athlete. Had a $1 million arm. Played baseball here locally in New Mexico. And I gave him an opportunity. I said, "Come work for me and let me show you how to make money." Before he was 21 years old, he stayed on the grind, lived with mom and dad. He flipped a few cars and he started making really good money with me and moving up. He was aggressive and wanting to learn everything and every position that's here. And I literally trained him up. Before he was 21, he bought his first house. And so I have several guys that come in when they're 18 and they just break out into this industry. And most of them, like I said, I'm constantly filling out, oh shoot, this guy's buying another house. I got to fill out as his employer, that his job is secure here. So that's where I get my gratification from is really improving people and I'm 100%. Albuquerque is not the greatest when it comes to property crime. But if we bring in these jobs and if we bring in these manufacturing and jobs and people are making a great wage, I pay medical benefits, which is kind of unheard of, but I pay medical benefits, days off. I'm pretty lenient about that as well. And so, everybody here understands that they're vital to the entire state that's moving. And so they're very careful about, well, I can't be, taking a day off for this birthday party, right? But I do need to be there for my daughter's graduation. Great. we make that happen. And so that to me is constantly the pat on my back, is watching these guys. You should see this parking lot. I mean, there's awesome Ford Mustangs. They're all souped up. And that to me as an employer is where I get my joy from, is seeing these guys grow. And if you don't have a souped up Ford Mustang, they got lifted trucks. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I pay these guys too much. but it's really a joy to do it. So
No, we appreciate you doing it too, and all the essential workers and people with the trades. There's a lot of business and opportunity out there for luxury, right? And I always tell people, what is a need and what is a want? And we unfortunately I think we're leaning too much to the wants as being our oxygen, and we lose sight of the things that you guys do and others do that give us a purpose. And then being able to be a part of it, to your point, and saying it without saying it, probably not a job for you. It's not work, right? This is a passion. You're a servant leader. You're elevating people to figure out their why and give them a purpose. And then not only just for themselves, the energy and output they gives to everybody else. I mean, if that's not what, for me, if that's not what God has intended us to do, is to continue to serve others, like, what are we really doing?
yeah. I mean, I've got guys, I'm invested with my guys going to Dale Carnegie, because a lot of the school systems, they don't teach them how to speak in public. Well, I'm going to give you the tools that you need to succeed, whether it's with me or the next guy down the road. You're going to benefit, you're going to grow. And when I make this environment, the guys don't want to leave. I've got an army of men behind me that are always willing, and I can call them at 2:00 in the morning and say, hey, this load needs to be loaded now. And they'll show up. I've got guys that come in 3:00 in the morning, and they start pumping all the fuel and the additives that need to go into the fuel stations. That's when they start work, so they're up at 2:00 in the morning and coming into the yard. And so, I wouldn't change it for the world. I really wouldn't.
Well, thanks, Brian, giving us a insight into your environment, your world, and how you're helping, move America and grow individuals within your organization, and connecting, what we do in transportation, what construction does. I mean, it's all interconnected. So appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
You got it. Anytime, guys.
Well, everyone, that is a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Build. We took away some real valuable lessons and insights, and I hope that you did as well.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would ask that you subscribe so you can never miss an update. If you're a thought leader looking to innovate in the construction industry, let's talk. We'd love to connect and hear your thoughts.
You can find Beyond the Build on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus anywhere else that you listen. And if you'd like to learn more about how Faro is changing logistics in the construction industry, please visit our website at faronow.com.
Once again, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, be humble, serve others, and make an impact.